I've got this 5/8 MDF left over that will work. I'd rather it all be plywood, but I have to use up some of the scraps I got laying around. I also have almost a full sheet of 3/4 inch plywood that will work perfectly for the back of this shroud. As with many of my project builds, drawing out a rough sketch is always my first step. I can then calculate all the exact measurements I need and number all the pieces. From there, I'll go ahead and get everything cut up and ready for assembly. The assembly for the shroud is super simple: 2 side members, a top, and a 3/4 inch plywood back. I like to clamp a large wire to the work table to kind of act as that third hand whenever I assemble upright pieces like this together. With almost 1.5 inches for adjustment between the saw and the wall, this should fit perfectly while also allowing adjustment if I need it from front to back. I'm butt joining the 2 sides and the top using glue and 1.5 inch brad nails. Then I can come back, pre-drill, and countersink some 1.25 inch wood screws to tighten everything up. I've got these leftover cutoffs from when I cut the pieces down earlier, so adding these will act as trim to cover the raw front edges of the MDF. But more importantly, these trim pieces will help to fasten the dust shield at the front of the saw. And before installing the back, I just want to test fit the frame to the opening. And once I'm sure everything fits properly, I can go ahead and install the back panel. Okay, fits like a glove. That's perfect. One thing I did forget about was the plug behind this back corner. So I'm going to pull this box back out again. I'll cut the plug hole, and then we'll get the plug extended into the box, and then maybe run a hole through here to plug everything in. So far so good. I've got enough 3/4 inch plywood left to cut one continuous frame piece to go on the inside edge of our box trim. The span across the top of this box was almost 48 inches, and with the MDF top on there, it'll most likely start to bow if I ever start to use it as a shelf. And let's be honest, of course I'm going to use it as a shelf. The continuous plywood frame will strengthen the top shelf, as well as its intended use, which is the mounting point for the front dust shield. For the front dust covers, or I guess you can call them doors, I picked up a half a sheet of 1/2 inch MDF, took the exact measurements less a 1/4 inch, and then just used a table saw to cut it in half. From there I laid them side by side and carefully measured and marked, and measured and marked, and measured and marked again until I finally felt confident I had the cutouts correct. Now I only had one shot to get this right, and in hindsight I should have probably used some cardboard to make a template and then trace that onto the MDF. However, luck must have been on my side that day, because all I can say is, wow. I found this piano hinge on an old mirror I had laying around and mounted it to the top of the doors so they could swing up and out of the way. To hold the doors in the upright position, I added these 90-degree angle magnets to the top corners of the cabinet. But let's go ahead and do some tests to see if it was even worth building. So the countertop the saw is mounted to is kind of a yellow color, and it's hard to see the dust on it. So I went and picked up some of this black sign board, which I'm going to cut to fit in and around the back side and the front side of the saw so we can get a better idea where the dust is landing and how much is landing where as we do these tests. So the first test is going to be doors wide open with the Bosch factory bag. All the back and all the front counters have been cleaned of dust. So this is where we are right now. Let's get these 5 cuts done. Okay, first test with no vacuum, just the factory bag. The doors on the dust hood wide open. And this is what we're left with after 5 cuts. Lots of dust at the back of the saw. Lots of dust starting to come out. Dust on the saw. The other side of the saw. Quite a bit of dust everywhere, which obviously is not healthy. So I'm going to clean this up, and then what we'll do is we'll hook the vacuum up to just the saw. We'll still leave the doors wide open and see if the vacuum that I have down in this lower cabinet, which is just a small shop vac, but every little bit helps. So we'll try just the vacuum, doors wide open on the hood. All right, so that obviously is a little bit better. Still got quite a bit of dust even out front here. On this side, not near as much as the bag only, but so the vacuum obviously does help a little bit. Another problem that I have with this saw is the factory port is not the best to begin with, but mine has broken a couple times over the years of hauling it in and out of my truck, taking it to different jobs, and I've taped it up or glued it up at times, and the mouth opening on the port is really not that good. I came across a video Travis at Shop Nation did, and what he's done is designed a new port that fits onto this area of the saw. It's got a wider mouth on it, and it follows the blade really closely. So I think what I'm going to do is try to resemble that as best I can with maybe some duct tape or something to widen the mouth on this opening. In the next test, see if we can suck more into the vacuum. So I'll clean up and then we'll get the larger mouth put on and see what that leaves us with. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is just replicate a wider mouth on the dust port to see if that actually catches more dust, and if it does, I'll likely order Travis's new design, but I want to make sure this works a little bit better at catching dust than what I have. And Travis, if you ever watch this video, I'm sorry for the terrible representation of your design, but duct tape is all I have to somewhat simulate it. So don't take offense to it. I'll probably order one. Wow, so that is definitely getting better. There's not a lot left in the cabinet. The dust collection port being a little wider, catching more dust, and less dust ending up in the cabinet. And very little out front of the cabinet. A little bit on this side, but not too bad. So now we will keep the big dust port on the saw, drop the doors to the cabinet down, test 5 more cuts that way. And then the final test, we'll add some suction to the box itself through a hole in the side, and that's for a future dust port, just to draw air from the inside of the box when the doors are closed. All right, let's take a look inside with that test. Still a little better yet, so not too bad. I think the larger dust port is having a major effect, but very little outside, a little bit right there. Not much on this side, a little bit inside. So I do think it's much better with the doors down, which is what we want. So the final test will be the shop vac is on, sucking through the dust port. The wider dust port with the duct tape, the doors down and in place, and suction added to the side of the cabinet box. Okay, here's the final test. Most of it is on the inside of the cabinet. This is a little bit of overspill because of the gap at the bottom of the door. You can see the door sits right here. So you got inside, outside. So not too bad. Very little on the saw and very little in the back with that suction on that side of the cabinet. Now that's just a shop vac. The actual suction on a dust extraction system will be much, much stronger. So I would expect this to improve a bit more. Very little on this side, nothing on the outside of the saw on this side. Yeah, quite happy with that one. All right, so I'm pretty impressed with the overall test. The first couple tests were not the best. There was a lot of dust outside, inside of the box, everywhere. Once we started using the shop vac, it got a little bit better. Once I added the larger dust port mouth on the saw, it got even better. And then once we added the side extraction with another shop vac, closed the doors, turned on both shop vacs, we practically had no dust left over, and that's what I'm looking for. So all in all, it was a positive thing to build this. Anyhow, I hope you got some value from it. If you haven't subscribed yet, think about subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.